section, second on reading section, third again on the detailed reading section, and this is the fourth webinar wherein we would be dealing with how to deal with the entire writing section of IELTS paper. Okay, hope you all are doing well in your studies and you all are practicing at home. IELTS, as you have seen, has 4 sections: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Now, listening takes up 30 minutes, reading takes up 60 minutes, writing takes up 60 minutes, and the remaining time is taken by the speaking activity. Okay. To move ahead with the writing section that we would be dealing with today, we have the writing section that is divided into 2 tasks. One task is about 150 words, exactly 150 words, but we have to target more than 150. That is somewhere between 170 to 190, which will take us up to 150 words. The second task is bound to have 250 words in that. Again, you have to target on writing more than 250 words, which would make you land somewhere at around 250 words. Now, how is the test format and what are the tasks that you would be doing in this writing section? Now, the test format is, you have to make sure that you are writing the entire test in the answer sheet. The answer sheet should have your answers properly written, properly marked, and with absolutely no short forms. You have to use entire writing in a proper format. If the question demands that you have to write in 3 paragraphs, then make sure that you are using 3 paragraphs, whereas it is not essential that you would be needing 3 paragraphs, because this writing task doesn't deal with your opinions and conclusions. So this article would take only 2 paragraphs. First would be the introduction and second would be the body. Now, notes are acceptable. Notes are not at all acceptable as answers. So if you're writing pointers, they are not considered, they would not be considered as your answer. While reading, while you are going through on the question paper, because this entire task would have a lot of data involved in it. So at some time you might write on your answer question paper some points that you would be needing later while solving up the answers, but then it is not essential that you write everything there, and then you cannot skip off any point that you have written on the question paper, and then while writing it on the answer paper, don't forget to miss out on any point that you have entered on the question paper. Now, we have 20 minutes. The entire task takes up 60 minutes, out of which 20 minutes would be devoted to the task 1, and the later 40 minutes would be devoted to task 2. So this task 1 has 150 words. So these 150 words are again divided into few things that we would see. We would see everything into detail, but then one by one. Now, this section that deals with interpret a diagram or a table and present the information on your page. Now, how do we do this? It can carry any one of the below given activities: organize, present, and possibly compare data. So there can be two pie diagrams, there can be 2 bar diagrams which would be needing comparison. Now, this can be like example, it is given money people spend on different forms of entertainment. So in a particular city, in a particular state, if this is the amount of money spent on entertainment, now we need to compare between 2 cities. So that can be a comparison over here. Describe stages of a procedure or a process. So stages of human evolution, how did the human evolve from the first stage to what we see as today? Then, like, the apes came in and how it had hair and it had a tail, and then the Charles Darwin theory and so many things that came into. But make sure that you are not writing any additional information on your answer paper. You would always be writing whatever is given in the question paper. Describe an object or an event or series of events. Now, this can deal with how the water cycle works. So right from the basic level, how the water boils, what does the sun do, and then how it turns up into clouds, and then how does it come down. So these all would be covered under this particular task. Explain how something works. Again, it can move around how a particular machine works or how does a pulley work or anything. But again, make sure that you are not giving any additional information in this task. You are only, your answers are revolving are only and only around the data that is provided to you in the question paper. Test format task 2. Now task 2 would be covered in the next webinar that we are coming up with. But then just to give you a gist of what does task 2 take up, it has, like the first task does not need any opinion or conclusion, whereas the second task might need your arguments or your opinions to solve the entire task. Test format, task and assessment criteria. Now, what is the criteria on which you would be assessed? You must respond appropriately in terms of formality and politeness. You cannot use any abusive language. That is, in the answer sheet, you cannot write anything that would hurt somebody's sentiment. You have to be very polite enough. You cannot use any short forms. Your organization should be clear and logical. It should form a particular format while you are writing. There you cannot leave up sections that paragraph 1 says about east and paragraph 2 says about west. No, it has to have a logical coherence and a logical correlation between them. Now, your style should be academic. You have to know there's no scope of writing any fancy language in IELTS, but yes, your vocabulary needs to be apt enough. While we are doing up IELTS, make sure that you use apt words in place of the information that is given. Now, if supposedly your answer is dealing with comparison, make sure you use words like likewise, similarly, in the same way, as well as, while, etc. If it deals with contrast, make sure you use words like whereas, yet, in spite of, on the contrary, etc. So you have to make sure while you're using these connectives that you are using apt word for the apt situation. Now, content should be relevant and complete. You cannot write incomplete content, and you don't have to you don't have to move it ahead than the limit that is given to you in the question paper. IELTS test is not about your intelligence, or it doesn't deal about how much do you know. It deals about how much can you communicate, how good are you in communication. So the IELTS looks at your communication level. It doesn't look at your factual level of intelligence, that how intelligent are you. I mean, you might be somewhere, you might be an engineer, you might be even a doctorate, but then how well do you communicate with the information that is given to you? That is the criteria behind IELTS. It is a communication test and not an intelligence test. This point has to be made very, very clear. Okay, moving on to the next part. Given graphic or a pictorial information, needs to write a description. Now you have to describe a picture. If there's a picture given or a graph given and the question says you need to describe it, make sure that you are using apt words enough. 3 words that needs to be banned in this section is I, me, and we. There is no point of using I, me, and we, because there is no personalized opinion or a conclusion required in this particular section. So make sure it is always based on facts. There is no place for conclusion, no place for opinion, no place for inference, and no place for predictions. We are not giving meaning here, but we are looking at the facts that we are given in the answer sheet. This task would particularly have bar charts, line graphs, pie charts, tables, which would be asked frequently. Now, your vocabulary should revolve around how bar graphs work, how line graphs work. But sometimes objects, series, pictures, diagrams, and flowcharts. You might have flowcharts also, you might get diagrams also. There can be a series of pictures also on which your question is asked. There can be 1 or 2 graphs also wherein you would be needing to compare between these 2 graphs. So make sure that your aptness in your vocabulary catches up with the answer in the examination. Writing task 1, test your ability to describe and interpret your graphic data. And this IELTS test, like I told you, is a test of converting the infographic data into your own words. So make sure that your entire infographic data that is given in the question paper is properly interpreted in your answer sheet. Describing stages of a process. While you're describing stages of a process, do not go much deeper into it. You just have to carry up only the milestones that are there in the process. Supposedly, if we are talking about a life cycle of a butterfly, so your butterfly lays eggs, then it's converted into a moth. Later, it takes up a shape of a larva. Then it gets its wings, and then it's a butterfly. So these are the milestones. So make sure you are only taking up these milestones into consideration and not the little teeny mini things that are left in between. Describe an object or event or a sequence of events. Now, how do we explain sequence of events? We have to use proper vocabulary. Like I told you, I've been telling you that it is not about using fancy vocabulary, but then make sure that you use proper apt vocabulary. Like if it's a diagram or a pie chart, you have to use the above diagram shows. You have to say the above pie illustrates or the above graph demonstrates. So make sure that you are using all these words which are apt enough in reference to the particular thing that is given in this question paper. It might be a diagram, it might be a graph, it might be a pie chart, it might be a comparison between two graphs also in some cases. Now, marking task 1. How is your marking done here? Task fulfillment, writing clearly, accurately, and relevant description of the information. Now, while you are giving the information, is it relevant enough? Are you accurate in giving your information? If the number says 239, make sure that your numbers are 239 and not 293, because many a times we might panic and we might end up doing some mistake like this. Focus on important trends presented on graphic information. Now, how do we present the task that is given in the graphing form? You have to use your words to describe whatever graphic is given. Yes, no ideas, but then only facts. Coherence and cohesion. Like I told you, you have to use apt words to cohere to the question that is asked in the question paper. Because if it's a graph, you are sure to be using the words like leap or steep down or a plateau or a stable ground. So these are few words that you would be using while we are dealing with a graph. Now, organizing writing using suitable structure. Your suitable structure for task 1 is paragraph 1, that would be introduction. It should not carry more than 1 or 2 lines, and paragraph 2, which is your body. That's it. There is no conclusion in it because we are not concluding anything. Using connective words to link the sentences and paragraphs logically. Yes, you have to use, while we are doing with similarities or comparisons, make sure you are using proper connectives to join your sentences. Now, while describing similarities, you might not need much of sentences or you might not need much of your wordings, but then yes, while we are describing difficulties, your data becomes more. So paragraph 1 can have similarities, whereas paragraph 2 can have more of your differences that you need to prove up. Vocabulary and sentence structure should deal with very apt vocabulary, which should not be fancy enough, but then they should be apt enough. Use a variety of sentence structures. Your grammar part again plays a very big role, a very vital role while you are solving IELTS or while you are taking up IELTS, because if you're not thorough with your grammar part, you are bound to make mistakes, because the sentence structures that are involved in grammar, the vocabulary, everything needs thorough practice with a stable ground. You practice your IELTS once and then you do not do it for 2 days, obviously you are bound to forget what you did the last day. So make sure that there is a consistency in your practice. How to prepare for task 1? Become familiar with graph types. Do practice exercises describing graphs. You have to do a lot of practice that involves graphs, that take up comparisons, because this is an area wherein you are bound to make more mistakes. Become familiar with the ways to express percentages. How do you express percentages? There are particular ways while you deal with these things. Express numbers and statistical data, express trends, make comparison between data. Yes, that is, I have been telling you repeatedly that your comparison plays a pivotal role here, because you need to be very thorough about how to solve up the data that is dealing with comparisons. How to prepare for task one. Look at the language. Describe how something works. How something works in the sense you might be uh, knowing everything about a particular machinery, but then you have to deal with only information that is present in the question paper and do not put any information that you have. Making references to graphs and figures, yes, the above graph demonstrates, the above graph illustrates, the above graph shows. That's it. Sequencing, yes, the chronological order that is given in the question paper should be maintained in the answer sheet also. Think about the topics in the tables and graphs. The entire task should not take more than 18 minutes because you need to have some time for revision, because there might be some point that you wrote and you feel it is irrelevant. Make sure you do not doodle over there in the answer sheet. But if you feel that the particular point that you have written there in the answer sheet is not relevant, strike it off using one single line. There is no scope of making designs over there because that might take up a wrong impression on the examiner. Spend 5 minutes reading the graphs and charts. The moment you get your question paper, make sure you are spending enough quality time. 5 minutes, some people might complete it in 3 minutes also. Sometimes it might be a very easy graph, the graph that deals with the population of 4 countries, or maybe the graph that deals with the pollution of 4 countries. So in that condition, you might not need much of time, but there are times wherein the graph itself is difficult enough to understand. So make sure you understand the graph properly before moving on to the next section. Make sure you understand the axis. What does your left axis say? What does your right axis say? Like I said, you need to know what the graph says first. Are there some dates given on the left axis, and are there some other data given on the right axis? So you need to understand what does the graph say first. Make sure you follow the lines on the graph. There must be very fine differences between two things that are shown in the graph. So make sure that your lines in the graph are well understood by you. Focus on the key information. The key information that is given, maybe the graph deals with years, and the graph deals with the vehicles that you are using to travel. So you need to be very sure on what axis is what kind of information provided. Focus on the key information. If two graphs are there, compare. Yes. Think about the time period and the tenses. Vary your vocabulary. Organize your information clearly. Write neatly and cross out the errors with one line, and do not make designs over there. Do not copy phrases from the question. As we move ahead in the webinars, as we take up regular sessions with me, I would be telling you and dealing with every example in detail. Like, once I show you this is not to be done, it becomes more clear than what is to be done. Don't include information not in a graph or a picture. So you have to be very sure that what you are supposed to do. Don't take more than 20 minutes. I say don't take more than 15 minutes, because 2 minutes you would take up to read and then go through it, and then some minutes you need to make changes in the information. Don't forget to leave time to read thoroughly, to revise your question paper. That is really very important. Now, this is an example that deals with academic writing task 1. The graph below shows different modes of transport used to travel from work in one European city in 1950, 1970, and 1990. Now, herein we have 3 different years and mode of transport. Now, if I see bus, the first thing that I see is bus, and it shows me 3 graphs, 3 bars rather. The transparent bar is of 1990, represents year 1990. A bit dark one is 1970, and the darkest one is 1950. So make sure that you read your graph properly. Based on this reading graph only, you will be solving the entire question paper. Now this question says, write a report for a university lecturer describing the information shown. You should write at least 150 words. Now, how does this, maybe the university lecturer travel? He travels by bus sometimes, then he travels by car sometimes, then he traveled on bike, and sometimes he went on foot. So what is the percentage of he traveling? If I ask you, what did he use more? So it is very relevant from this that in the year 1950, he took up more of, he walked more on foot, whereas He took up car more in 1990. Identify the main trends for each mode. What are the trends that used in every mode of transport? Did he use bus more? How did he use the car? How relevant was he in walking down, and how relevant was he in taking up a bike? Identify any large increases or decreases. So we can see a great hype on the car usage, and then very low on the uh, what I say, in the year 1950 he took car more, whereas in 1950 he took car very less. Does anything seem surprising? Yes, I am very surprised at the usage of car. Maybe he bought a new car in 1950, and then he getting used to it in 1970, and then he used it diligently in 1990. Possible answers. The graph below shows different modes of transport used to travel to and fro from work in a European city in 1950, 70, and 90. That's it. These are the instructions given. Now, what is the answer? The graph shows the percentage of travelers in a European city who used bus, car, bike, and foot to commute to and fro in the years 50, 70, and 90. So, this is how you solve up your graph section. If you have any doubts, to put up your queries in the help box there, and you can go up and book up a session with me if you really enjoyed learning IELTS techniques with me. I am there. This is Pratishtha, and I enjoy being with you all people. With all of your doubts, give me a new mood to learn. So to interact with me, you can go on the link below that says https helloenglish.com /teacher/SPROAO4NG Pratishtha. And to know more and talk to me, you may go into below link and you can find my profile there. Go book your sessions, and very good luck for all your IELTS preparations. Thank you.